Sabbath. Happy day. Let's pray. Our loving God, we thank you for the morning. We thank you for the fellowship as we fellowship with one another and also fellowship with you. We ask that you be our teacher, you teach us true. Thank you, for this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So this was supposed to be Ken's class. Ken is not there, so I'd like us to have a discussion, and it will be something that we all understand. So I read much of Equine interactive class. So I would like us we review Daniel 11, 40 and 41. So you can read Daniel 11, 40 and 41. So I read, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and they shall enter into the countries, and shall overthrow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. So I know that we are familiarized with Daniel 11, verses 40 to 45. It's been a study that has been there in the movement since 1989. Sindio Rispa? Yeah. So when we look at Daniel 11, 40 to 45, we identify one. So I just want us to look at two things. One, we identify there's a structure. We have structure. We see a structure. And number two, I want us also to identify the theme. So when we talk about a structure, what is a structure? Steve, structure nini? I said we want to identify the structure in the 5 verses. And before we do that, we need to understand what's a structure. So to you, Steve, what is a structure? So Steve is saying pattern. Anyone else? Framework. Anyone else who think otherwise? We have a, yes, Dennis? Plan. Okay. Plan. Anything else? Arrangement. Arrangement in order. Can I say so? Okay. So do we have anyone? Kodo, do you have any word? System. Okay, I think I'll stop there. So a structure is a pattern, framework, plan, arrangement in order, or a system. So so if we agree that structure can be a pattern or a framework or a plan or an arrangement or a order or even steps. So what is the structure that we can be able to see from verses 40 to 45? Do we see any structure? Joy, do we see any structure? So I said it's a discussion. Even me, I didn't prepare for this class. So that's why I want each and every one of us to participate. So me, I will be guiding or reading as we give the answers. Do you see a structure? Any pattern? No? Jeff, do you see a structure?
What I see is like a cause and effect structure. So you have something like a cause, then a result of that action. We're talking about verse 40, right?
40 to 45, the entire verses,
Or
the 5 verses.
45, I thought it was just the first part of 40.
No, the 5 verses.
The 5 verses, I'd have to look into it and kind of get that.
Okay, I can read all of the verses so that we can participate, all of us. So I read up to verse 41. 42, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things of Egypt. And Libya and Ethiopians shall be at these steps. But tiding out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So those are the verses. Esther? We can work with pattern, framework, or arrangement. Just to go with this one. So Joy was asking which divination of structure are we following? So I've made it easy as pattern, framework, or arrangement. Yes.
I was thinking when you look at the verses, I would mark that maybe the theme or the subject, the one we are looking at now is this entity called the King of the North. And it's as if it's doing something in a progressive way. So I would just see like a progressive way of doing something, like just if he is conquering and overcoming things in a progressive manner. So you can begin to see from verse 40, you see a confrontation, king of the north and the south. And also when you begin looking at part B of the verse, the king of the north deals with a power called king of the south. And then he says also, meaning he now goes to the king of, to the glorious land. He stretched his hand, and countries in the land of Egypt shall not escape. And then it goes to progressively, if you look at it, it's as if he's doing some activities in a progressive way.
That is the structure.
For me.
Okay. Anyone else? Is what I got, what Dennis has said, is when you look at the subject, you identify first the subject. If you agree with the subject being the king of the north, you see the king of the north as progressively doing something. Verse 40 is warring with the king of the south. Verse 42 is doing some activities, entering the glorious land. And the other verses, which is verse 42, 43, conquering the Egypt. So that is the pattern that Dennis has seen. You're okay with that one? Did I see a hand there? Rispa?
No, but I was trying to, because um, if we take the king of the north as the theme, wouldn't it be important to, because the verse 45 ends with, him dying, quote unquote, because he says, and none shall help him. So could we leave it broad, like the theme to be the king of the north, or there is need to be a little bit more specific and saying, it's the rise and the fall of the king of the north as a theme, before we will now go to the bit of the structure.
Okay. Mm, yeah, I don't have a problem with writing the rise and fall of the king of the north. That is verse 40, you said, verse 45, the aspect of him being destroyed or falling. So I don't have a problem. Even the king of the north, the theme being the king of the north, I don't have a problem with that. So I was also seeing the same. If I've taken the king of the north as the subject, all the rise and fall of the king of the north, then the structure that I see, all the pattern, is I see from verse 40, 41, 42 to 45, I see the king of the north doing something. So the structure I will have is like you have verse 40, there is king of the north doing something. Verse 41, king of the north doing the activities. And verses 42 to 45, we see the same power that is doing something. Who has object, like who is opposing that? The structure being verse 40, 41 to 45. Yes, Joy?
I'm just wondering, how is that a structure?
I'm taking a structure like as a pattern. I see
So
the
the
king.
pattern is the conquer,
Yeah,
conquer.
yeah. The steps that, if I use a pattern as a step also, so I see the king of the north is conquering the king of the south, goes also to the glorious land, and went on conquering even Egypt and taking control of Egypt. You're okay with that one? Yeah. Okay. So so as the topic is verses, we are focusing verses 40 and 41. So verse 40, it says, at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. So we are at the time of the end. Yes.
I'm also struggling, just how when we say 40, 41, 42, 45 as a structure. So are there instances where you could remove yourself from Daniel 11, 14, uh, 41, where you could have, a set of, okay, a story, and then the verses are not in that chronological order. So
Oh.
like the part, quote unquote, the pattern that you've indicated there is like 40, 41, 42 to 45. It's just like one after another. But then I'm asking, are there instances in the Bible or in the Bible where we have the verses not going in a chronological way, so that we are saying this is from this entire story, this is the pattern we are getting, which is not in a chronological way as stated in the Bible. I don't know whether someone understands my question.
Yes, I get your question. I'll say yes. You asked, is there instance in the Bible we have a structure that verses are not in their chronological order? So I say yes, but that's not. Is it the case with Daniel 11:40?
No, I was just
Oh,
asking.
asking. Yeah, there is, but
Because for me, I'm struggling to see how you're writing 40, 41, 42, 45 as, saying that's the structure.
okay.
Like
So
you see, for me, when we say this, when we write the 5 way marks and we say plowing and latter rain harvest, sounds to be more of a certain guiding principle, rather than this, the way we've indicated. So basically, I'm just struggling to see be called a structure?
Oh, let me introduce another word. What I have in mind, a structure is also a sequence. So that's why when I come to verses 40, 41, I see a sequence. So the king of the north is going to conquer the king of the south. Also, in verse 41, it says, you shall enter also still the king of the north. So I see the king of the north dealing with the king of the south also is going to enter the glorious land. I see sequence. Yes.
So I think for me, a concept that we have had for long. So when you look at the setting of the Bible, when you're writing, you see that 90% of the Bible are words, but you also need to be diligent to realize that there are structures, and like there are many types of structures. I don't know how to describe it, but as Rispa says, are there instances where you don't have that chronological. That chronology is what we call progression, or what is there as an arrangement or a sequence. Sometimes the Bible puts something and then repeats itself. So you see that the structure you see is that the Bible is telling us something and then repeating again. That's another structure. Sometimes the Bible tells you something, skips the subject and goes to a different subject, and then comes back to the same subject again. And those who have that tendency is John and Daniel. Revelation tends to be complex sometimes. You may read verse 1 to 4, John is telling us a very different story from what follows from verse 5 to 6. So you need to see how they put these issues when they are addressing their point. Like an example, you'll also go to Revelation 12. He begins by telling us of a war. The story is the same. And then first he tells us of a war between the dragon and the woman. And then he gives us a flashback where the war began. He takes us backwards. After taking us back, he now takes us again. After the war, the dragon is unable to deal with the woman. She goes to deal with what? The remnant of her seed. So there are different structures. Like Jeff said, you can find a story where there is a pattern of cause to effect. Something is happening, something is going to happen as a result of that. So there are different structures that you will be able to identify patterns.
Okay. So, Rispa, you're okay? Aye. So, the king of the north is the subject. We have the structure we have identified. If we don't agree with this one, we can discuss it more in Q&A. So, I wanted to start with verse 40 because our focus is verse 40 and 41. So, verse 40, we have at the time of the end, so we have the war between the king of the south and the king of the and him. So we have king of the south and we have him. We have the corons and we have the king of the north that is coming against him. So we have the king of the north that is going to come against him. So when you look at part A, we don't have much information. We just have information about the king of the south pushing at him. When you come to part P, we have the king of the north. We have more information about the king of the north and how the king of the north is coming against him, which we can identify him using the parable methodology as the king of the south and the him here as the king of the north using parable methodology. So the king of the north here does not come against the king of the south by himself. So we see comes with chariots, horsemen, um, and many ships. And we have the first described on how he's going to conquer the him. It's by overflowing and Passover. So we have chariots, ships, and horsemen. And what did you use to mark that one as being? It's a revision. Yeah. Someone said something. So we have the king of the north that is going to come against the him with chariots, horsemen, and many ships. What did we use to mark with that? Like that one has been. Huh? So I'll go with that one. So we have chariots, sheep, and horsemen. And the star said, this is, yes, I'll come back to that. Let us deal with this one first. So we are verse 40, we are dealing with the time of the end. So I want us to unlock the time of the end. We unlock the hymn, the characters that we have here, and also we can unlock part P. So at the time of the end, which time of the end are we talking about here? Yeah, we can shout the answers. 1798. So 1798 historical at the time of the end. 1798 we have the king of the south that is going to push or war against the king of the against him. So we have the king of the south and we have him. So we can identify the king of the south in 1798 and the him in 1798. Yeah. So who is the king of the south in the time of the end? Pam. Who is the king of the south? You don't know? Or you are not participating? Or you have forgotten? Forgotten? Who should answer for you? Kodo, the king of the south, and the hymn at 1798. You are not? Who should answer for you? Ochora?
We normally have the spiritual kingdom and the natural, but I can say 1798 we have France, the king of the south.
France. And the hymn?
I think it's the king of the north.
No. I asked you king of the south?
Yes.
Ukaniambia France.
Yeah.
Asked you him? Kasema king of the north. So I need also to specify. Not a symbol. Yeah. Not sure. Nani akusaidie? Steve?
So the king of the south would be Egypt.
Egypt? And the hymn?
I think we said Turkey, but I could be not sure if that is the second part. Turkey.
Okay, so I get there is a France, the hymn Jora did not answer. We have Egypt and we have Turkey. So I see two versions, yeah? So one more person, I move on. Esther? 1798, the time of the end. We have the king of the south that is war, that is going to war against him. That's war against him.
It was France and papacy.
So France and papacy. So Gladys, I saw your hand.
Okay, yeah. I was saying to me taking of the south. I think there are these two perspectives. I don't know whether to get it for the Midrash and then the Eremite.
You can give both two perspective.
Okay, the way I understand the king of the south is Egypt and him as France and the king of the north as Turkey. And then when now you are at colony, now you have the king of the north and the south. When you use the parable, whereby the king of the south as necessary as France
Okay, so Gladys is saying we have two perspectives. There is time we have the king of the south, being atheistic France, and the him being Turkey, France, him of France, and king of the north, Turkey. And why do we have the two perspectives? Anyone else? Dennis, you want to speak regarding we are dealing with 1798.
So I think as Gladys is saying, if you ask who are the king of the north and the south in 1798, first thing I would say is that it depends on who you ask. So if you ask Camilla, right, they will give you their version, and it's dependent upon the methodology they used. And if you ask us today, this dispensation, I think we have a different version from the Millerites, and it's because of again the different type of methodology we use to read the verse.
So okay, let's go with us. I'm asking us.
So if you ask us, the king of the north is the papacy, the king of the south is France.
1798. So 1798, we have the king of the south is going to fight against the king of the papacy, the hymn. Then we have the Quran that's separating the two verses. We have the hymn. So we will come to part 2. Also, I want us to understand part 2, the king of the north. So you have the king of the north that is coming against him. So by chiasm, we'll say this one is the king of the north. Yeah, king of the north. So we have king of the north that is coming against the king of the south. So we had information that Esther gave us that this king of the north is going to come plus is being supported by USA. So I have USA here plus who? The king of the north. So the time of the end. So also, if I break this first, I put it, I overrate here down, I will have the time of the end. So, and we know at this time of the end is our time, 1989. So who is the king of the north in the time of 1989? And the him who is the king of the south in 1989? Esther? Esther, Esther, not Esther K. So we have USSR and papacy. So papacy plus USA, the time of the end, that is going to come against the USSR, and we have the word on how it's going to overthrow the king of the south. It's by overthrowing and Passover. So we have overthrow and Passover. That's how the king of the north is going to destroy the king of the south. Now, if we agree with this is what verse 40 is teaching us, now we want to move to verse 41. So can move to verse 41. Verse 41 is talking about the king of the north, the him, the he there being the king of the north. So we have the king of the north is going to enter the glorious land. So it's the first says, also he shall also enter the glorious land, meaning this power, the king of the north that destroyed the king of the south here in verse 40p, is going to destroy or conquer the glorious land. Now the question we'll ask ourselves, already we identified the king of the north here as papacy. Now when we come to verse 41, if we line this, we draw our line this will be the time of 1798, 1989, then Sunday law. We'll mark verse 40 here, 41, sorry. So this is 40p, verse 40p, verse 40a. And the king of the north here is papacy. The king of the north here is papacy. Now when you come to verse 40, we have the king of the north. So here papacy. Now here, who is the king of the north in verse 40? Is still papacy or it's another power? And how do we explain, if it is another power, how do we explain the change? Yeah, what is going to help us to understand the change from papacy, maybe if we don't agree if it is papacy, to something else? Yeah, the steps that we take through. So verse 40, the king of the north is going to conquer the glorious land. We understand this is the line of 144. And I will say this waymark we have passed here. So we are standing somewhere here. So if we agree that we understand, we are standing past the Sunday law, I understand that each and every one of us should know who is the king of the north. Yeah? Sindio Chor? We should know who is the king of the north. Then our work is to explain how, if there is change, how that change happened. Yeah? So thoughts? Yes, Esther?
I think the king of the north at Sandalo is the USA.
Mhm. So Esther is saying at the Sunday law, the king of the north is USA. Yes, continue.
Because when they conquered the king of the south at 1989,
Mhm.
the USA was assisting the papacy to conquer USSR.
Yes.
And then after winning,
Mhm.
USA
Mhm.
took everything.
Mhm.
We see that in the story of the Angry Pope.
Mm.
Because when he conquered, the USA now took everything.
So Esther is saying the king of the north that is going to enter or conquer the glorious land is USA. And he's saying here in the beginning, we had papacy as the king of the north and plus USA as the servant of papacy. Now then once they conquered the king of the south, then USA is going to take, if I call, the crown from the king of the north and take it everything by themselves. So that is Esther. Others, what do we think? So Esther is saying the king of the north is no longer papacy. It has changed from the papacy to the USA. And Esther has explained her perspective on how the change happened. So Esther has gone from the prophecy to history. Yeah, prophecy to history. So as someone is giving their perspective, Esther, are you right to do so? To go from prophecy to history? Like, yeah.
But even the line, what we are saying is history. Something is so.
Okay.
The king of the north conquering king of south. So that is true.
Okay. I'll explain that later. So that is Esther. The rest of the people, what did you understand? The king of the north that is going to conquer the glorious land. Perspective zenyu ndo nataka. Because we are past the Sunday law, right? You can say if you agree with what Esther has explained, you say I agree and I see the same things as Esther saw. But if you have this USA, but you have another perspective, also is welcome. Yes, Rena, verse 40 is what we are explaining. No idea. You don't have idea who is the king of the north?
I was going to say, yes.
Hmm. As Esther saw it. Okay. Who has a different explanation other than what Esther said? God. Do you agree with the king of the north, King Yesa? What is your explanation?
I think from our standing, we trace the history the way it was said and see a shift in power where what the purpose, because when we changed when our message shifted and we changed even the goals of the king of the north, for example, the change in nature of Sabina, the main issue that we are dealing with. So when we track back, that is right or not, I'm not sure. But when we track back those changes that we developed to describe the Sunday law, that we bring the Sunday law, we could not see them clearly within the tribal institution, but we could see them clearly in the institution of the United States. So that led us to that conclusion for consistency.
Okay. Anyone else who has a different opinion? Or in addition with that one?
So I think for me, when you look at the verse 41 itself, and going by what we began by looking at, up there we say the pattern in which we saw is one power uh, progressively doing something, one after another. So when you look at part A of verse 40, you can see a confrontation between the king of the north and the king of the south.
Mm-hmm.
And in this instance, it is our king who is being destroyed. The king of the south pushes against the king of the north. And then when you look at the concept, the term push, if I remember what we used to do, we used to go to the root meaning of that word push. And it is derived from, if I remember, the aspect of like two warring with horns, like the way a goat would push against another. That is to make war. And when you look at part B of the verse, it speaks of the king of the north now coming again to make war with the king of the south. And it seems like he's overflowing and totally taking control over the king of the south. So what I'm trying to see is that if it's the king of the north, I'm just wondering how we'll be able to see that power shift from the papacy we have addressed as the king of the north to USA. And maybe I think that's what you're asking Esther. Would you shift from the symbols and just make an application? I know she's correct, but I think you can't see it in the verse that there is that power shift. I think you need to have some pre-knowledge of from other sources to be able to see that. And I was also trying to see uh, if you bring this story and maybe you exhaust it and then you overlay other stories, I think you'll be able to generate more information that helps you understand your subject. So, and one of the stories I would maybe go to is to the relation that Daniel and Revelation is the same story. So, Revelation adds more weight to the understanding of the subject in Daniel. So, maybe Revelation 13 and 17 would give us more understanding of the story in verse 40 and 41. And also, I was thinking going to a history in Daniel 8, the Adoki Wars. I think when you look the that story of the Dadoki War, I think it's the catalyst that leads to the third Dadoki War, the Battle of Gabin, which is overlaid as 1989. You see two kings of the north. There is an alliance between Seleucus, Antigonus, and Payton. So forget about Payton, but look at Seleucus and Antigonus. Seleucus was the original king of the north, because geographically he controlled Babylon. But Antigonus had taken this territory from Seleucus. So both of them are two kings of the north co-working together. And it's the same perspective you'll see in 1989, as you have put it, papacy plus USA. And then you'll end up seeing that the structure tells you that at the Sunday law, you'll again see the two, the Seleucid dynasty that begins there and Antigonus. So, and when you try to look at how we used to understand that, we still had the same bias as the verse 40 would put it, because it still puts the papacy at verse 41. That is, if you are consistent with the pattern. So you wouldn't just shift directly. And the same thing, you look with the Adokiwo, you can't shift. But when you know, go to Revelation 17 and start seeing more input, then you'll end up realizing that maybe you can now begin to have some arguments to see that whatever the patterns we are seeing from the verse, you don't understand them literally. First, you need to bring the concept of death and resurrection, which is what helps us to juggle the two concepts. Maybe someone would ask, in verse 40, part A, who is the king of the south? As you have put there, it is France. But when you go to part B, who is the king of the south? USSR. How do you shift from France to USSR? In verse 40, part A, the king of the north, you can see it's papacy USA. And if you do not factor in the concept of death and resurrection, you will carry the same concept of papacy and USA. And when you continue with the same concept, you see that's why it leads us to a dilemma in the Sunday law perspective, because you'll be forced to factor in the papacy. So bringing those thoughts, I think, helps us now to arrive to seeing a power change from the papacy to USA.
Okay, thank you. So I want to address it from the 2 points I think Esther and Dennis have talked about, and also Kodo. So yeah,
So does that mean that is the purpose still the Sunday, the king of the north?
at the Sunday law.
No, is this correct only for this study? Are there studies like when you look at the counterfeit?
Mm.
Who is the king of the north?
The question is, when you are looking at this study, are we looking at papacy as the counterfeit, as the king of the north?
No, that is my question now. So is this correct just for this study? Like, so the USA is the king of the north, but only for certain studies. But when you are looking at other studies or other subjects, the papacy is the king of the north.
Okay, so let me take it come a question. Yeah. So I want to address, I hope there is no further questions. So I want to address the change. We all agree that there is a change, that papacy is no longer the king of the north. Rather, it's USA who is the king of the north. So I just want to address it using the two verses that I've written in the pod. So we have the story of Revelation 17. So Revelation 17, um, I want to overread this story with this story. So, and I want us to read Revelation 17. We can start from verse 8 to 10.
It says,
Yes.
the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The seven heads are the seven mountains on which the woman seated, and there are seven kings, five are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space.
Thank you, Rispa. And first time, cheat. So when I look at these verses, so verse 8 says, the beast that you saw in verse 3, where the woman was riding, was, is not, and is yet. And verse 10, so this verse 8, verse 10 will say, so this verse 8 and this is verse 10. He said they are addressing the heads. So you have 5 foreign, one is, and there is another that is yet to come, which is future. And I see this structure. I see a structure. So I think Dennis has talked about the issue of death and resurrection. So when you look at where John is standing, historically you can mark that as 1798. I hope we understand that. So in the time present, which is 1798, the beast that John saw is not there, was in the past, is not, is yet to come. So if it was not there, and verse 8 talked about perdition, which is destruction, or we can call it death. So this beast was a time, there is a time that this beast was, is not, and is going to resurrect. I will use that language. So if we identify that beast, what beast was that was there in the time period before 1798, and is not there in the time period of 1798 and is going to come, I think it's going to help us to understand this change. Yeah, I hope so. So we'll take about the concept of death and resurrection. Death and resurrection.